Events. We're here this afternoon with Dr. Tiffany Ziegler from Walgreens. She's going to give us the lowdown on everything pharmaceutical related. So please enjoy this live streaming event, and I hope you will join us for many more. And I would like to introduce Dr. Tiffany Ziegler from Walgreens. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. I do have to do the standard disclaimer. The opinions expressed here are not the opinions of Walgreens. They are my opinions. That's a standard thing. Alrighty. Today I'm here to offer answers for questions that I get frequently in the pharmacy. Alrighty. Oops, I got to point it at the thing. There we go.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. We have a lady who's going to sit down.
Get one at the handles.
Okay, there we go. How I knew from the start that I'd hear all the questions. Pharmacists love questions. We really do. In pharmacy school, we were told we would be the bringers of answers and the purveyors of knowledge, and I was really excited to be a part of that. We were told that we get the whole gambit of questions, but I didn't really understand that until literally 30 seconds after I got my license. They called me from the district office and said, "You're a pharmacist, your license is posted." And I said, "Oh, that's wonderful," and I was so proud, and I puffed up my shoulders, and I turned to the first customer. I said, "Yes, sir, how can I help you?" And he says, "Can you tell me where the Ajax is?" And you know what? I still love getting questions, even the ones I've heard over and over again. I hope my excitement spills over in the presentation today. And with that, we will jump right in. Famous first question, brand versus generic. Are generics really the same as brands? Essentially, yes, but in real life there are exceptions. Many people remember before 1984 when generics were not the same as brands, but they have changed the laws. And now legally, in order to be considered the generic, it must have the exact same medicine in the exact same dose and dissolve at the same rate. Only the excipients, the inactive ingredients, are different. They cannot be exactly the same as the brands when they're in the generics, so there are small differences in how fast or slow the pills dissolve, which theoretically could affect the bioavailability, which is how fast it's available to get into the body. This has led to two interesting developments. Brand companies are making their own generics, which are absolutely identical in every way because they can duplicate their own recipes. And we're finding that people can be sensitive to the small differences, which is being investigated now in a new field of study called pharmacogenomics, which is where they study how the expression of genes can affect the uptake and metabolism and even the excretion of your medicines. For instance, if you inherit two good copies of the gene that breaks down a medicine, you're going to metabolize it faster than someone who has two inefficient copies. That person may be younger or bigger than you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mention. A little louder. Okay. We're going to have a question and answer at the end. So on your handout, if you have a question on a specific slide, make a note and we can go back to it. Sorry about that. Okay. That person may be younger or stronger or bigger than you, but you would break down the medicine a lot faster and you would need a bigger dose. So why would I switch anyone? I have compelling clinical and financial reasons. Clinically, it's not as if the drug won't work at all. It is the same medicine, and for the vast majority of patients, the generic will work as expected. The range of doses that are therapeutic for most patients, for most medicines, is fairly wide. Most medicines come in 3 or 4 doses, and the dosage is adjusted by your doctor until you reach your therapeutic goal. I'm getting to that. Thanks. Alrighty. Your dosage is adjusted until you reach your goal. This is true for brands and generics. So, for instance, if you were taking 10 milligrams of lisinopril and your blood pressure was controlled, I could give you 7 milligrams or 15 milligrams and your blood pressure would still be controlled. In other words, for most medicines, the small potential differences in the bioavailability are less than the differences in the standard dosing range. And of course, at this point, I must point out that there are exceptions to this. They're the narrow therapeutic index drugs. That's what the NTI stands for, okay? As the name suggests, there's a narrow window of therapeutic target. They can easily go subtherapeutic, which is too low, or become toxic, which is too high. Medicines like Coumadin, warfarin, several anti-seizure medicines, nerve transmission drugs, all these medicines are very sensitive to changes in dosing. And so if I have a patient on one of these medicines, I won't switch them between manufacturers without giving them a good long head start. I will move a mountain to try to find this medicine. If it's on back order, I'll try to find a supply somewhere for them. Financially, and we'll make no bones about it, it saves the patient money and the insurance is expected. Some insurances won't even pay for a brand if there's a generic, even if the doctor says no substitution. Alrighty. Who are you to switch my prescription? I get that question. The option to switch is now default. They say, my doctor wrote the brand name on there, don't you have to dispense it? The short answer is, unless you or your doctor specifies brand only, it is assumed that the pharmacist is giving the doctor is giving the pharmacist permission to switch it to the generic. They're saying they leave it to the pharmacist's discretion to dispense an FDA-recognized generic. This legal change is recognized by the AMA as necessary for streamlining care. Both you and your doctor can choose brand, but don't be surprised if the insurance makes you jump through hoops to get it. They are trying to make money after all. You may have to try the generic and fail, which your doctor has to document with them. They may charge you very high copay, or they may not just pay at all. You can always just choose to pay for it yourself, out of pocket. But please remember, prescriptions are not returnable. There is no buyer's remorse. One surprising reason that I hesitate to dispense expensive brands when there are cheaper generics available is the spouse finding out about it later syndrome. I can't tell you, it's heartbreaking when I get a call from someone who says, we have to bring this medicine back, it's too expensive. Unfortunately, at that point, I can't do anything for them. And finally, the read it on the internet argument. People come to me and say, I've heard there can be a 45% difference between the brand and generic. And that's kind of their torturing the data until it confesses on that one. The FDA allows within any batch of medicine, whether it's a brand or generic, a 5% variability within each batch. So if it's a 100 milligram pill, you could have 95 milligrams or 105 milligrams in that pill, and it's still acceptable to the FDA. And that's true with any brands or generic manufacturers. The FDA also allows a 20% variability in how fast the medicine dissolves between brands and generics. So any generic comparing itself to the brand must dissolve at least within 20% of the rate that the brand dissolves. This allows the medicine to behave the same way as is exposed to the body, and the body can take it up. Expiration dates. The date until which the manufacturer guarantees full potency. The date on the bottle is very conservative. The Department of Defense FDA shelf life study, I know that's a big long word, they started in 1979, and they are finding, under the right storage conditions, that most medicines have full potency and safety 10 to 15 years after their expiration date. There are a few exceptions to this. Tetracycline did break down to a toxic byproduct, but it's been pulled from the market, so it's kind of a moot point. At this time, I don't know of any medicines that a retail customer could encounter that would have a toxic breakdown product in it. No. What the pharmacist must legally tell you. If you call me up and say, can I take this Norvasc that I found last year? It's got an expiration date from last year. Legally, I have to tell you no, because it's considered misbranding. That's an old term from the early days of drug regulation. But what you really want to know, when is it truly expired? Okay. Some medicines do go stale quickly. Insulin, 30 days after you puncture the bottle. Eye drops that are open last for 2 months. Liquid antibiotics that your pharmacist mix up are good for 10 to 14 days. Nitroglycerin pills that you put under your tongue are good for 6 months. It's harder to tell when a solid pill is no longer potent. It's not like milk or bread. You can tell when those go stale. But we do know that the storage conditions can accelerate the loss of potency, like heat and humidity. This means that your hot, steamy bathroom is the worst place to store medicines, especially if you're the stock-up type. If you want to keep a week's worth in the bathroom, that's okay, but don't keep your 3-month supply in the bathroom. Try a linen closet, bedroom drawer. Don't mix the pills in one container. Okay, not only do we have pills touching each other, we could have a chemical cross reaction that we don't even know about. But think about what you do when you pour your pills in your hand and you're looking through all those pills for that one. What have you just done? You put them all in your hot, steamy hand, and then you're going to put them back in the bottle. You're making a little sauna for those pills in there. Smelly, crumbly, stained, cloudy, discolored, cracked tubes, hard tubes, things that have been left open, the things that have been left in cars, liquids that need to be sterile like your eyes and nose drop. If they look wrong or they've been open too long, just throw them out. Now I will tell you, for over-the-counters, let's say you found a Benadryl, it's been in the linen closet, it expired last year, I'd take a chance on that, not too bad. But if it's a prescription drug, you got to think about the risk versus benefits. Are you going to suffer serious harm if you don't get this medicine at all? Only you know the risk that you're willing to take. Only you know the conditions that it's been stored under. So I know that's kind of a wiggle out on that question, but that is the legal question, the answer that I have to give. Vitamins and OTCs. OTC means over the counter. What vitamin should I take? A wise old pharmacist said to me, that's like asking me what kind of music I should listen to. Really? Most medicines, they have the same, or most vitamins, they have the same recipe. They're very similar. Any of them are good. Whichever you like. It's almost that simple. Specialty vitamins have the same basic supplementation if you flip them over and read them, but you may find that they have unique ingredients. The eye vitamins have lutein, and there's a women's weight control formula that has a green tea extract. If you want to take one of those vitamins, bring it by your pharmacist and let us look at the unique ingredients in there to make sure that we don't have any interactions. Adults can use the chewables, the Flintstones or the any other chewables, but children should not take the adult tabs because of the size. Look for the USP seal. The USP guarantees that the ingredients that are listed on the label are in the pill, in the declared potency, and the amounts. Does not contain harmful levels of the specified contaminants, and will break down and release into the body within a specified time. I'm sure you've all seen the late night commercial where they put that vitamin in a glass of water and it doesn't dissolve. Well, that's a good thing. We don't want things to dissolve in water because the air is full of water, and if pills dissolved easily in water, every time you'd open your bottle, your pills would crumble. So we don't actually want things to dissolve well in water. We want them to dissolve in stomach acid. Don't forget to show your pharmacist which supplements you're taking, because there are instances where there are drug-vitamin interactions. People who are taking Coumadin can't take vitamins that have vitamin K in them, for instance. People who have pheochromocytoma can't take things that have iron in them. I could go on and on about those. They're fascinating. But let me give you some examples, the brands that are USP certified. Notice that the Centrum is not on this list, but Centrum is made by Pfizer, so I think just by association it's going to be high quality. And by the same token, one-a-day multivitamins are made by Bayer, as in Bayer aspirin. So I'm comfortable recommending those. And they should be in your handout too. Okay. Herbal supplements. Let me start off by saying that I was the first pharmacy student in America to do a rotation through the American Botanical Council, so I'm not staunchly Western medicine only. I don't have that view. I know that plants have medicinal compounds in them, and I know that many of our prescription medicines originally come from plants. I also know that most supplements in America are very weak compared to what they can get in Germany and other countries. The German Commission E has studied herbal supplementations extensively, and they are a good place to start and read up and get your basic knowledge about herbal supplements. But just remember that you're going to get a different product if you're in Germany. Don't keep trying anything that isn't working, conventional or herbal. The more serious your condition is, the shorter amount of time you should try an alternative medicine before you go with the conventional medicines. And don't get suckered by dubious products. I know, I can't say it enough, we want things to work, but if it's too good to be true, it probably is. The National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine and the Office of Dietary Supplements offers strong, hopefully unbiased, clearinghouses for solid science. And MayoClinic.com has a wonderful, user-friendly, searchable database with a very intuitive rating system, A through F. So if you're interested in herbal preparation, put on your jaded eye and look at the strongest evidence we have to date. There are lots of people out there ready to separate you from your money, and some of these people might actually believe the claims that they're making. There is a lot of hype surrounding it. I want to plant these questions in your head so that you can avoid the hype. Who operates this site? Who printed this brochure? Was it a government agency, a university, a health administration, or a for-profit company? Is the site or the brochure meant to educate you or ultimately sell you something? Remember that scientific lingo can sound very convincing. If I told you something was a dihydrogen oxide-based allobarbadensis PLO-enabled emulsion, even though that's just aloe vera gel, doesn't that sound a lot fancier and more powerful when I call it a bunch of scientific names? It's just our nature to use context to inform content. So watch the advertisements. Most nonprofits don't use them. Does it have verifiable references? Could you go find this on the internet, or does it just say studies show? That's kind of vague. You really can't check up on that. Is it an email solicitation with lots of uppercase letters and exclamation marks and the assurance that this is not a hoax? It's probably a hoax. Sometimes the hype is in our own heads when we make assumptions like, if it doesn't help, at least it won't hurt. Natural means safe. No cautionary warnings on the label means it's safe. And if there was a recall, it wouldn't be on the shelf. Health spending accounts, flex spending accounts, and over-the-counters. They have changed the rules. It used to be if you had a credit card that was funded before taxes to pay for medical expenses, you could buy things over the counter like Band-Aids and Tylenol and eye wash solution. This has changed. Most things over the counter, if you want to use your health spending dollars, you have to have a prescription. It'll cost the same whether you buy it off the shelf or whether I put a sticker on it, but you'll be able to use your health spending dollars for that. Have your doctor write a laundry list because the prescriptions are good for a year and they can be stored in the computer until you're ready to buy that bottle of Tylenol or box of Band-Aids. The shingles shot. Oh boy, you've been hearing a lot about that lady, also called Zostavax. It's recommended for all adults age 60 and plus, even if you've had shingles already. It's also FDA approved for people 50 and over if you have a prescription for it. Why do we recommend it? It reduces the occurrence and reoccurrence of shingles by 50%. It reduces the severity of the attack, which can make all the difference. It is recommended. It is safe to be around children and pregnant people right after you get the shot. It's currently a one-time dose, and we've got studies 6-7 years out showing that the immunity is lasting. I don't know if you've had shingles or known someone who's had shingles. It feels like you are on fire. And so anything that you can do to reduce the severity or even the occurrence of that, I highly recommend it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I was filling out the application,
Mm-hmm.
one of the questions I asked about, and they said, well,
Mm-hmm.
I have a daughter that's died of cancer, and they had said that I should, the immunity or something for about a month.
Your immunity is not conferred for about a month. Yeah, I think we need to check into that. Can we bring that up at the end or talk about that afterwards? Okay. Do I need a flu shot? The real flu is pretty bad. In a word, yes, you need a flu shot. It can actually lead to hospitalization and even death, especially in vulnerable populations. Getting regular vaccinations exposes us to a variety of strains, improving cross-coverage because we're teaching our systems to recognize the general kind of invader that a flu virus is. It does change every year. Challenging our immune systems is something we've accidentally eliminated in the 21st century. We're seeing cleanliness, we're wiping down counters with antibacterial stuff, we're using hand sanitizers, and we are simply not exposing our bodies to as many germs as before. And so now we're seeing asthma and autoimmune diseases, things like muscular dystrophy and or MS are on the rise, not muscular dystrophy, excuse me. We know that seasonal allergies are related to this. We know that seasonal allergies explode in countries where there isn't much parasite activity. I know it's kind of awful to think, but if you had a tapeworm, you wouldn't have allergies. I don't know about the trade-off on that. It benefits those around us as well, because if we can contain and neutralize a virus with our own immune systems, then we won't pass it on to someone else. And for those of you whose lifelong goal is to avoid needles, there is even an intranasal spray that's available. We also have preservative-free formulations if you're worried about the preservatives that are in flu shots. Now, flu shots cannot give you the flu any longer. They changed the way that they make them. It used to be that they took the whole flu virus and cooked it and killed it and just injected the whole thing. Well, some of them survived, and people did get the flu from the flu shots a long time ago. Now what they do is they take just the coats off the virus. We found we don't need the instructions inside, we just need the case. That's all our immune systems see anyway. And so they take the cases, the coats, and make copies of that, and that's what the flu vaccination is made out of. And so it can't give you the flu because there is no viral DNA, RNA in the flu shot anymore. It's kind of like you got the album cover but you don't have the record, or the CD and you got the CD case but not the CD, whichever you prefer.
I still had some friends that came up with the flu this last year.
Yeah, I can. We'll do all the comments. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. Thanks. Alrighty, hypertension. Oh, this is a big topic for people. Ideal is 120 over 70. 130 over 80 is the beginning of hypertension, and 140 over 90 is the beginning. The lower we can get you below 140 over 90, the better. We'd like it to stay 130 over 80 or less. There are no dependable symptoms. For every person who says they can tell that their blood pressure is up, there are people who can't. The two numbers, the top number is how hard the heart goes thump, and the bottom number is the steady pressure in the pipes. So the higher the bottom number is, the more I'm worried. The top number can get elevated. You're walking around, you climb some stairs, your blood pressure is going to go up for a few moments to compensate for that activity. That's why your doctor makes you sit for 5 minutes in the office, because he wants your blood pressure to be back to resting. Why do we need to care about hypertension? It's because of the damage that the hypertension can do to our blood vessels in our body. Our blood vessels are stretchy and elastic. They string back, they pop back after the top number, the push, and then they squeeze back in to help to propel the blood along. Over time, if they're exposed to high pressures, they can become stretched out like old socks, and they can no longer assist the heart in pushing the blood along. High blood pressure just stretches them out. They can also become narrowed from that damage and actually hinder blood flow, making the heart press harder against the blood vessels just to get the blood to move through. Damaged blood vessels like that can also encourage clot formation, which is a leading cause of strokes and heart attack. The little filters in our kidneys get blown out by high blood pressure, which can lead to renal failure. In fact, hypertension is the leading cause of renal failure. Loss of visual acuity due to blowing out the retina. You damage the retina with the high blood pressure. And aneurysms, which are bulges in the blood pressure, these can break, causing a cerebral hemorrhage or a hemorrhage elsewhere in your body, or the bulge can form a clot within there which can break off and cause problems later or immediately. People ask me if they're supposed to be on 2 or 3 different kinds of medicines, blood pressure medicines, and the answer is yes, because they work synergistically. They have an additive effect when they're used together to help bring down the blood pressure. Diabetes, hope and control. It is not the gloomy sentence that it used to be. Everyone knows the urgency that the type 1s who don't make any insulin, how they have to watch their insulin and blood sugar, but I'm talking about the much more common type 2 diabetes, which we develop in adulthood because our insulin receptors are burned out. For most people, we do continue to make the insulin, but the body can't use it to shuttle the glucose as efficiently as it used to. The body has good days and bad days for blood sugar control. It's often hard to tell if your blood sugar is high unless it's really high, and the sense of urgency isn't there like it is for the type 1 diabetics. You miss a dose of your meds, you can't tell from the outside. You might not even notice if you don't test your blood sugar frequently. Between that and the tendency of people to not think about the things that scare them, it's easy for diabetics to have poor control. Ironically, it's not a front burner issue while it's still manageable, and that's what I try to impress on the patients. Take the bull by the horns, manage it now, and you don't have to have the complications later. The A1C test is a very valuable test in managing your diabetes. It's interesting, it's a 3-month average. Your blood cells last about 3 months. The new ones don't have any candy coating because they haven't been floating around in your blood system very long. The old ones get a candy coating buildup from the sugar in your bloodstream. And so we take a sample and we take the average. And that will show us what your average blood sugar has been for the last 3 months. It sees the highest blood sugars even when you don't, and admit it. Who's going to test their blood sugar when they know they missed their medicines all weekend, right? The meters are easier to use than ever. You can test on your arm or your thigh. You don't have to use your fingertips anymore. What's really exciting, they have got tests of machines right now that slip over your finger. You don't even have to take a blood sample. They use laser light to measure the blood sugar level. Those are in the pipeline, the GlucoLite and the OrSense. We hope to see those on the market in the next 10 to 15 years. There are even wearable insulin pumps. That's pretty exciting. There are so many sources for diabetic patient education now. There are diabetic educators that are available through your doctors and through the hospitals. Pharmacists themselves are diabetic trained, so we can go over your meter, talk about how to use your products, what your tests mean, how to detect and treat high and low blood sugar. Diabetes.org, wonderful clearinghouse, joslin.org. YouTube. If you have a meter and you want to learn more about your meter, YouTube it. There will be somebody there that will show you all the features on that. Insurances pay for these diabetic coaches. Seize the opportunity. If your doctor says, I want you to go see a diabetic educator, ask him if it's covered because you will learn something new. Very exciting. Common myths of diabetes. Eating too much sugar causes it. No, thankfully, or they would tax sugar like all the other vices. Only fat people get type 2? Surprisingly, no. More than half of my type 2 diabetic patients are not obese or even overweight. I can't have starchy foods and sweets, and I have to eat special diabetic food. I do not recommend eating a lot of the special diabetic sweetened food because those artificial sweeteners act like laxatives. Yikes. It's a lot easier to get colds and other illnesses. Actually, your resistance is the same, but it takes you a lot longer to recover. You're not more susceptible. And finally, if I have to start using insulin, then I'm not managing my diabetes well enough. It's not really a function of whether or not you manage it well. Your receptors are going to burn out at the rate that your genes dictate and not anybody else's. Somebody may be on diabetic medicine, oral medicines and pills for 20 years and never have to use insulin. Somebody may have to switch over to insulin within 5 years of their diagnosis. It doesn't necessarily mean that they did anything wrong and you're not a failure. One of my favorites. They come up and they announce, I have a cold. Don't be afraid to ask. We are trained to differentiate. We can assess whether you need to go to the doctor or whether we can try some over-the-counters first, and we can safely determine if you can take those over-the-counters. Whether it's a cold or a virus or allergies, the treatment for the symptoms is the same. It doesn't matter what's causing it. If you have a runny nose, we're going to treat it as a runny nose. If you have a cough, we're going to treat your cough. Doesn't matter what's causing it necessarily. Here's an important secret about the OTC medicines. Try flipping them over and reading the ingredients. You're going to find it's the same few ingredients over and over. All the different things like severe cold and sinus and nighttime flu remedy, these are all marketing schemes based on what you think you have to rope you in to buy their product versus the exact same ingredients of another product. Here's what I wish every sneezy, sniffy, germy, congested person would know. The congestion, the mucus in your head, is what germs love to grow in. Blow it out, rinse it out with an neti pot, take medicines to dry yourself out, but please don't sniff it back in your head. You're just making it so easy for the germs to grow. All right. I'm going to grab a drink real quick. Oop. Need a little drink of water. Okay. Should I go to the doctor? The rule of thumb on when to go to the doctor. If you have a fever that does not respond to medicines or it's greater than 103, any animal bite that breaks the skin, including human bites, wounds that don't stop bleeding in 5 minutes, if you have a fever that keeps coming back for more than 24 hours, if you have vomiting and diarrhea for more than 24 hours, a severe headache that is the worst headache you've ever had in your life or it's different from your normal headaches, or if you have a cough, bowel changes, a painless lump, pain, any distressing symptom, or any symptom of unknown cause that lasts longer than a week. If the pain is tolerable and you can attenuate it, try to last the week, but if the pain gets worse instead of better over the course of 24 hours, go to see the doctor. And again, don't be afraid to ask the pharmacist. We will be happy to help you figure it out. Insurance issues. Yes, they can do that. I bet this has happened to you. You go to a pharmacy and they tell you your medicine's not covered on the insurance. Insurances have many ways of defining what they want to pay for. They have formularies and tiers and non-preferreds and prior authorization required, and sometimes they just don't cover it. They use the FDA treatment, the FDA guidelines for medicines to determine how long they'll pay for it. For instance, Ambien, a sleep medicine, is approved for 3 months of continuous use by the FDA. So many insurances will say, we'll pay for 3 months in a year. If you're taking it longer than 3 months, they'll say, well, we don't have to pay for it anymore. It's not really recommended that you take it. A prior authorization is where the doctor calls and certifies with the insurance that you have a need for this medicine that goes above and beyond the normal course of treatment. Sometimes you have to try their preferred medicine and fail that therapy before they'll pay for it. Sometimes they have mail service mandatory, where they make you use the mail service facility if you get a maintenance medication. They'll let you get the first couple of fills at the pharmacy, but then you have to switch over and get it through mail if you're going to be on it for a while. The third-party processor you may have heard about before. This is the company that your insurance hires to process the claims. And so many times when there is something that needs to be done, I have to talk to not directly to the insurance, but the third-party processor. And often when claims don't go through and there's just simply a problem, that's where the problem lies. Insurance options that you have. So you've reluctantly accepted that you're not leaving the pharmacy with the original med at the expected copay. And trust me, we really don't like saying no. We'd rather find a solution for you. Don't be afraid to ask if there is another medicine in the same category that's covered. We'll get it switched over for you. You are not obligated to pick up any medicine. If you get a prescription and you bring it in, you can ask me how much it costs, and if you don't like that cost, you do not have to pick that medicine up. That does not hurt my feelings at all. And if you want to let it sit there for a couple of days while you talk to your doctor and find out more information, that is perfectly okay too. I don't mind. If I put it in the bag and it's ready to go and you decide you don't want it, that is much easier for me to deal with than you taking it and then saying later that you don't need it, because then I'm really stuck on what I can do for you. Sometimes you're hoping to get an override, but you want to start the medicine. Don't pick up the medicine and pay cash for it unless you accept the possibility that you're not going to get reimbursed. This has happened before. Some people are hoping to get that prior authorization for their preferred medicine and it gets denied, and then they're stuck with $120 or $300 copay. Mm-hmm.
How does a pharmacy keep medication before you pick it up? How long do they do that?
Insurances let us keep medicines ready to go for 10 days, and then I have to put it back in stock. Most prescriptions are good for a year from when they're written. Mm-hmm. Controls are only good for 6 months, but you can certainly ask if you're not sure about which one. Okay. Ordering from Canada or elsewhere. The General Accounting Office, an investigative branch of Congress, recently conducted a study. They ordered medicines from different internet sites to see if they were getting what they were supposed to be getting. The safest bet are Canadian pharmacies that require prescription from your doctor. Some samples that came back from other foreign countries had no active ingredients, or they came back improperly packaged. You just didn't know what they were exposed to, what kind of heat conditions or freezing conditions they might have been sitting in while they were being shipped. It was a noticeable trend when I looked at that study that the samples that were found to be unacceptable tended to come from countries where English was not the first language. That was a trend. That's not a hard and fast rule. They didn't speculate as to why, and I won't either. Just interesting. What makes my pharmacist happy? Go ahead, ask for your refills in advance. If you're down to your last week of pills, give me a call. We'll get it in process. If it's not quite time for the insurance to pay for it, we'll tell you the day that it'll go through. Keep your records up to date, like your phone number. If I need to call you, your doctor calls in a prescription to me and there's a problem with your insurance, I'd love to be able to call you before you get there. I want to save you the trip. You're going to get updated insurance cards from time to time. Keep those. Bring them all in. Show them all to me. I will find the one that I need. Allow us time to call the doctor and the insurance and the supplier. More and more people out there, more people getting medicine. The number of script counts has gone up. Sometimes we do need more time. We may have to work with your insurance. We may have to order a medicine. Remind us that you have special requests. If you like the flip-top caps instead of the snap caps, remind us. We'll be happy to do that. If you like them divided up into little small bottles instead of the big bottle, we can do that. If you want us to make special marks on the bottles, we will do that. Just remind us. It may not be me who's on duty, so remind whoever you're talking to at the time that you place your order. Oh, very important. If you want to look at your medicine before you leave, please do it in front of us and don't touch your pills. Pour them into the cap, or we'll bring you a counting tray, or we will open them up and show them to you. That way, if you decide that you don't want them, you haven't touched the pills and I can redispense them to someone else. Very common question. What do you do with your unused medicines? How do you dispose of them? It used to be that you could flush them down the toilet, but we found that the sewer systems cannot handle these medicines. They are escaping back out into the environment in their unbroken down form. And so now what they recommend is that you put them in your household trash. Put them in something that's kind of gross. People don't want to go through it, like coffee grounds or cat litter. Seal the package up. I know, it's kind of different, but we do incinerate trash. The Swansea of Northern Illinois incinerates most of our trash, so that makes me feel better knowing that most of the stuff's going to get burned up. Certain medications, they still recommend to be flushed. The potent painkillers, they recommend to be flushed. These can be handled by the sewer system, and it discourages people from digging through the trash and looking for these medicines. Take-back sites are certain police stations throughout the city of Chicago and all in the suburbs, all the city halls and police stations there. They do have certain days that they prefer, or they might have a drop-off box. It's just best to call ahead. If you wanted to drop off a controlled medication like a narcotic, they're going to ask you for your ID. There are take-back sites. Yeah. You don't take it back to pharmacies anymore. Unfortunately, most pharmacies have discontinued their take-back programs because it leads to dumpster diving out in our dumpsters and malicious rumors of redispensing. Some people would love to just say, oh, they're not throwing it away, they're just giving it to you again. No. Yikes, no. We don't want those rumors to even start. The FDA also has a website where you can look for national take-back days and other guidelines. Which over-the-counter pain reliever? Okay, Tylenol is not like ibuprofen, which is Motrin, which is Advil, or Aleve, or aspirin. Advil, Aleve, aspirin, Motrin, those are NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. They are in one family. Tylenol is in a family by itself. Tylenol does not have anti-inflammatory properties, unfortunately, but it is the one that is safe for people who have stomach problems to take. So if you've been told by your doctor that you can't take aspirin or ibuprofen, then Tylenol is the one that you're allowed to take. NSAIDs can make asthma worse, so people who have asthma need to be on guard for that. And it is an anticoagulant. It can affect your blood clotting, and so you are often told to discontinue taking ibuprofen, Motrin, Advil, Aleve, aspirin a few days before surgical procedures. And if you're ever in doubt whether which one is safe, just come by the pharmacy and ask us. Adherence issues. Half of the 3.2 billion prescriptions dispensed in the United States are not taken as prescribed. Only 50 to 60% of medications are used for patients who have chronic conditions, despite the evidence that the medication and therapy improves life expectancy and quality. Approximately 125,000 deaths a year are linked to medication non-adherence. 33 to 69% of medication-related hospital admissions are due to non-adherence, not taking their medicine. Here's the kicker. Taking the medicine 80% of the time yields the therapeutic responses. If we can get you to take your medicine like you're supposed to 80% of the time, we are achieving our goals, believe it or not. Oh, here's some interesting numbers. For every $1 of a person taking diabetes medicine that we spend on their medicine and they take it, they save $7 in costs for other care for their diabetes. For every $1 that we spend taking high cholesterol medicine, we save $5.10 down the road, and $3.98 for every $1 spent for high blood pressure medicine when it's taken effectively. The reasons for non-adherence. The side effects, whether they're real or potential, the cost, complex. It can be complex to remember how to take all your medicines. A fear of addiction or dependence. The perception of risk versus benefit. You might recognize these attributes in yourself. In this case, I'm asking the patient the question, what is keeping you from achieving your healthcare goals? Some obstacles are obvious, but some are subconscious and unspoken. Some are embarrassing, and you might think that your doctor and pharmacist are going to think less of you for having these fears. I hope this convinces you that you are not alone, that you're not the first person to struggle with these. Don't be afraid to mention these issues to your doctor and pharmacist, And don't keep any doctor or pharmacist who brushes you off on these. When I was looking around, there are compliance aids that help you keep your pills organized and remind you to take them. There's pill sorters. You can get them with dose alarms. Insulin pens. Gone are the days where you have to draw it out with the syringe. They've got pens with little dials, and you just click it to the right number, and you put the little needle top on. It's wonderful. There are blood pressure machines and glucometers that will talk to you and tell you, insert blood drop now. Your blood glucose reading is. Very nice stuff. epill.com has a chooser that will take you from the very basic, just 7 little containers in a row to the ones that have alarms, ones that pop open. There are ones that have scales. I saw one that it sits on a scale, and it's got battery operated doors and alarm, and if the container pops open and the pills are not removed, it will send a message to the caregiver. So let's say your sister is out in California and she forgets to take her medicine. You're worried about her. So she doesn't take her 8 o'clock in the morning medicine. By 10 o'clock, you're going to get a ding on your phone saying, the morning dose was not removed from the scale. I thought that was just, technology is wonderful, very clever. Maybe a little nosy, but. Here's a picture of a medium one. Got little reminders. This one, I believe you can set 6 different alarms on that one. It's got braille markings. You might not be able to see it on the screen. But they can go simple to super high tech. They have magnifying glasses that you put the pill bottle down into so you can read the label. So many neat things. I recommend just because it's got so many cool gadgets on it, you do the thing and you think, oh, I really want to have one of those. I really want to get one of those. It's like going to the Container Store. Being a caregiver or needing a caregiver. Reach out for help like adult daycare. Delegate. Hire from reputable companies and agencies. I cannot stress this enough. We hear so many tales of woe from people who hire, my aunt is 55 and needs a job. I'm going to get a drink of water. And so she's hired by a well-meaning neighbor to be a caregiver, but we find out that she had some other issues that make her not suitable for being a caregiver. And so I urge everyone, if you need a caregiver, to go through a reputable agency first. I try to strike up the conversations with my patients when they come in. Patients will say to me, oh, I'm picking up prescription for my mom. I'm picking up a prescription for my sister. And we start talking about caregiver roles. There are so many resources available. Aging in Place initiatives, AARP is a wonderful clearinghouse for that, and I'm going to show you more on that slide. Medicare advisors at the Social Security office. I could do half-hour presentation on all these websites, and I've got most of them listed. Caring.com. Alrighty. Basic health care services to seniors who need supervised care. Information about door-to-door transportation and meals. Hundreds of relevant articles. Different issues that come up in elder care. This is the clearinghouse. This is the place to start for caregivers and elders. Case management, home services, adult day services, senior companions, care choices, legal and financial assistance, directories for local agencies, caregiver support, elder abuse prevention, senior centers, transportation, outreach, employment. Stuff that I didn't even think about before. I've been amazed. Eldercare.gov has a searchable database for providers in many categories. They have information specialists that are available to talk to Monday through Friday until 8 o'clock Eastern Time. That's pretty nice. Financial assistant, home repair and modification, housing options, legal assistance, long-term care, transportation, long-term care facilities. Oops, I'm sorry. There we go. That's the one I was just talking about. I didn't realize. Okay. Medicare Part D, D as in drugs. It's prescription drug coverage for people who have Medicare A and B, the red, white, and blue card. You are eligible simultaneously. The drug coverage is not automatic. You do have to purchase a separate plan for the Part D. Sometimes the Part D is included in a comprehensive plan. You can purchase those plans also. Most of my patients have an A and B, and then they purchase their D separately. You have to choose a plan unless you are covered on a pension plan. If you have a retirement plan that offers health drug coverage, then you have to certify that it is equal to or better than Medicare drug coverage. Most of them are. I haven't yet seen a pension plan that wasn't at least superior to Part D. The plans that are available to you are geographically determined. You can enroll on the website or by calling the 800 number, or you can call one of the companies directly and they'll send you a paper form. They make lots of easy ways to apply. I had to warn you about this. You're supposed to pick a plan within 3 months of becoming eligible. Otherwise, they start charging a penalty for a lot of people. If you don't have a separate but equal coverage like a pension plan and you don't pick a Part D plan, when you finally get around to picking one, you may end up paying a penalty. So if you are eligible but you don't take medicines, I recommend getting a low-cost basic plan just to keep your foot in the door. And we can help you. We have open enrollment. You've probably heard about this in October and November. And during that time, you'll see lots of advertisements, and we'll have lots of materials at the pharmacies to hand out to people. And we will even schedule times to be on the phone with you if you would like assistance in calling Medicare to get enrolled or to change plans. And something that new has happened. Some people pick a Part D plan, but their medicines change or they find they're not happy with their D plan. You can switch over to a 5-star rated D plan at any time during the year. You don't have to wait for open enrollment. 1-800-MEDICARE is the way to call, or you can go to medicare.gov. There are state assistant counseling and assistance programs to help you pick a plan. You can find that through the state website. If you want someone besides a pharmacist to sit down with you and go over the plans, you can certainly have one of those people available for you. Be sure to have your list of medications ready when you go to the Medicare website or call them, because they will use your list of medications to determine which Medicare D plan that you'll sign up for. Medicare itself has put out a publication. The things that you need to worry about, think about when you're picking a Part D plan are the monthly premium, whether or not it has a deductible, what the copays are for brand and generic, whether your medicines are covered, whether the generics are covered due to the donut hole. Does everybody know what the donut hole is? You ever heard about this term yet? Okay. The donut hole is where the coverage flip-flops in Medicare Part D. For the first $2,500 worth of medication that you get, Medicare pays for most of it and you pay the little copay. Once your cumulative cost between you and the insurance reaches $2,500, it switches. You pay for most of the medicine and they pay a little bit until you've accumulated a grand total of $5,200. And then the copays kick back in, and it's called catastrophic coverage, and they'll pay most of it and you'll have a little copay. So a lot of people get surprised by the donut hole. This time of year I'm starting to see some of my medication users who have several prescriptions are reaching the donut hole right now. And so the medications that were $3 or $6.50 are now suddenly closer to their real price, $100, $150. So that's a real shock, especially to somebody who's on a budget. And so I recommend for people to pick their plans carefully and have all their medications ready. And at that time, if we need to switch you to another medicine while you're in the donut hole, we've done that before. Try to get samples for patients. Okay, senior.gov. This is for help conducting business with federal agencies. It tells you the rules and regulations and what you need to have ready when you call them. This is the Administrating Aging website. It educates older people and their caregivers about benefits and services that can help them. AARP, one of the big players. You could spend all day on this website. There's so much to learn there. This is a valuable website, benefitscheckup.org. It will help you identify what programs that you are eligible for, programs that you may not have heard of before, and how to enroll in these programs. Weatherization of your house, in-home services, pharmacy programs, state programs, public assistant programs. This has many wonderful synopses on health conditions, chronic diseases, infectious diseases, immunization questions. This is the primer for Medicare topics. Coverage, rights and protections, health plan options, prescription drugs, Lower income programs, this is where you find that information. Alrighty. This also has wonderful synopses. This is a National Library of Medicine's website. The Affordable Health Care Act. Huge caveat here. I'm not an expert in this, and I don't discuss politics with anybody but my husband. It's huge right now. This is Obamacare, essentially. And there at healthcare.gov, it gives you your rights. It has help topics, which I found very easy to navigate. It was very intuitive. Comparing care providers, prevention and wellness, of course. It talks about pre-existing and disability coverage and tax credits. And finally, my favorite slide. It wouldn't be a PowerPoint presentation without a pie chart. I think you have to be a science geek to appreciate this one. That's a pie chart. Pie I have eaten and pie I have not yet eaten. Alrighty. Alrighty, now we're going to open up the floor for questions from the computer audience as well as my live audience. Please feel free. Okay, yes ma'am. What is the difference between aspirin and Tylenol? Aspirin is in the NSAID category. It's a nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory, and so it is hard on the stomach and cannot be taken by people who have ulcer issues. It is also an anticoagulant, so it affects how the blood pressure or how the blood coagulates or clots. Tylenol is not an NSAID and does not have the anticoagulant or anti-inflammatory properties. Mm-hmm.
Say if you think you're starting to have a heart attack,
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
can you take a Tylenol instead?
If you are feeling the symptoms of a heart attack and you are advised to chew an 81 milligram chewable aspirin, a Tylenol is unfortunately not substitutable in this case. In people who have stomach problems who are having the heart attack, it is nonetheless the benefits of that 81 milligram aspirin for prevention of a clot during a heart attack outweigh the risk of the ulcer. So in those cases, it is still, unless you have an aspirin allergy and you are absolutely under no circumstances supposed to take aspirin, it is advisable. Oh.
When you have acid reflux,
Mm-hmm.
like Rolaids or that,
Mm-hmm.
does that do the same kind of thing if you're getting a heart attack? Or?
Rolaids and other antacids will not do anything to prevent the blood clots. When we take an aspirin, we're trying to prevent clots and break down clots during a heart attack. It will have no effect on that, no beneficial effect.
So when I have had palpitation,
Mm-hmm.
I've taken the antacid,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps stop it.
The antacid,
That,
well,
because the
no. I know why it helps.
the acid thing,
Gastric irritation. Yeah, gastric irritation, stomach irritation can irritate the heart and cause palpitations, which is why Rolaids will help stop a palpitation. But I wouldn't.
it really wasn't the heart, it was the...
Yeah, the heart was just reacting to what was going on in the stomach. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Do statins cause diabetes and dementia?
There is some studies coming out now that some people were having high blood sugar or their diabetes was not as well controlled with the statins. And as far as the dementia, we'd actually seen studies that it was helpful in preventing it by preventing plaque formation on the neurons. But the studies are still out. We're not getting strong evidence yet. I have a question from the... Oh, I'm sorry. The question that was asked was, do statins cause diabetes or dementia? Mm-hmm.
I take a number of herbal supplements,
Mm-hmm.
both Puritan Pride and Swanson.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with these sources and would you consider them reliable?
Okay. The question was, I take several herbal supplements from two resources, Puritan's Pride and Swanson's, and am I familiar with those suppliers and how do I feel about them? Puritan's Pride is a reputable company and they're well known. I have no doubt that their manufacturing processes are safe and that they are adhering to the good manufacturing guidelines. The list of USP certified vitamins was not inclusive by any means. The Mayo Clinic has a wonderful website to help you look up manufacturers, as well as the USP. USP.org, I believe, is searchable for manufacturers.
What about Herbalife?
Herbalife, I don't remember seeing on there. I don't know as much about it. I know they're a well-known company, but I do not know about their overall practices. Okay, yes, ma'am.
I am just a medical and I'm in restriction sheet, the interaction sheet, says do not take letters. You have cataracts. I mentioned that to my doctors, and they said your heart is more important than your eyes, and they didn't understand that.
Okay.
I don't know the question I'm asking, but the answer is
Okay. The question is, I'm taking a medicine, metoprolol, you said? Okay. And it has a do not take if you have cataracts warning on it. And the patient questioned the doctor, and the doctor said your heart is more important than your eyes. I think that was a poorly worded way of saying cataracts are much more treatable than heart arrhythmias. We can deal with cataracts and get a really good outcome, but if we don't deal with your heart, you're not going to have a good outcome at all. Does that okay. Alrighty.
interested in disclosing the number of medications expiration and whatever I use for 2 years. According to this, flushing for certain is acceptable.
A general rule of thumb, the potent painkillers. Painkillers are about the only thing that are recommended to be flushed. It is listed on the FDA.gov website, which medicines they do recommend flushing. But as a general rule of thumb, it was pretty much just all the opioids, Vicodin, morphine, OxyContin, Vyvanse. Yes, sir.
If you take a toxic drink or pill, how can you bring it up or neutralize it?
The best way to do that, if you know what you've taken, is to call the poison control number 1-800-222-1222. Some things we want to induce vomiting, some things we want to neutralize. And so some things, if they're very caustic, we don't want to bring them back up. We'd rather neutralize them. Sometimes by the act of neutralizing them with charcoal or liquid antacids or various other substances, they become inert, and then they can pass through the system without harm. And some things we do want them to bring up using syrup of ipecac or manually stimulating. Sometimes they'll have you drink milk before you do that also. But the very best way is to call poison control. They will walk you through it. They've heard everything. Yes, ma'am. The lady in front. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm taking hydrocodone because I hurt my hip. Why is my hydrocodone mixed with acetaminophen?
Hydrocodone and acetaminophen are mixed together, I believe, to offer more comprehensive pain management coverage. Also, when the hydrocodone is by itself, it is in a higher category of control. It becomes a C2, which means that the regulations to dispense it are much more strict. And so by mixing with the Tylenol, we actually make it a C3, and the rules are a little bit easier.
So I take it, and I don't take it every day because I'm afraid of getting addicted. Because it has acetaminophen, then I cannot take aspirin or any of the NSAIDs.
You can take aspirin and NSAIDs with hydrocodone, or the question is, can I take aspirin with my Vicodin, my hydrocodone formulation? And the answer is actually yes. If you are allowed to take aspirin and ibuprofen normally, then you can mix it with those. There is not an interaction.
And it won't clash with the acetaminophen.
That's correct. It will not clash with the acetaminophen.
The question at home is, I have trouble keeping track of my daily medications. What can I do at home to help?
The question is, I have trouble keeping track of my medications. What can I do to help? There are several different methods that we can use. One of them is making the pills visible. We often recommend getting some sort of a pill organizer that has a visual recognition system, whether you're taking one a day, you can just do, they're long and rectangular and they have one packet for each day. They have some that are divided up into morning, afternoon, and evening. Sometimes people will get watches, or use their computer to set alarms for themselves. Some people rely on having someone else remind them. That isn't always the best way to do it, but it's a good backup. The e-pill website, drleonards.com, there are several websites that do sell pill reminders that actually have integrated alarms in them. Some things that we can do to help you at the pharmacy, we can flip some of the lids over so that you can visually distinguish between them. We can make marks with different color inks to help you distinguish them. Marking them on a calendar. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I had heard that recently they have a capsule like a vitamin that you can use to swallow that actually is better than going through a colonoscopy.
Yeah, the pill camera. Mm-hmm.
Are we able to receive it after you
Okay. The question is, we've heard about something where you swallow it, it's better than going for a colonoscopy. And I think you're talking about the pill formulation of the medicines, correct, to help clean you out? Yeah. Okay. The Osmoprep is the name of that. That is a prescription that you can get from the pharmacy instead of drinking the liquid. Is that correct? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, instead of the whole, the whole process.
Right. That comes in a bottle of 32 pills, and you take 16 of the pills with a big glass of water, and then you take 16 of the pills with a big glass of water, and then you have to follow it with 2 more big glasses of water.
With this new, I thought it was just one.
No, I haven't heard of one yet. No, I'll probably go and hear about it. I don't know of a single pill formulation.
And you have to take all 16 at one time?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, but they said it's like a camera.
Oh, you're talking about the camera pill, right? Okay. That you still have to do the prep to remove the residue before you take the pill. It is just a large capsule shape, and it's got a camera, and it goes through you. And I believe you have to stay sort of near the receptacle for the pictures so that the radio signal from the camera pill can go there.
And you have to do that through your doctor. You can't
Yeah, the doctor. It's considered a medical equipment, and so at this time I don't carry them at the pharmacy because it's easier for them to give you the pill and make sure that, it hasn't been stepped on or...
That's what I was wondering. Is it available at Walgreens now?
Not yet, no.
So where would the doctor get it from then?
They order it from the manufacturer.
And it takes a while before it gets it.
I don't know what their delivery time is. I imagine with FedEx and UPS they can probably get it fairly quickly. They probably have some there.
Are
But
they more expensive than having the procedure? Or
I don't know.
will it be covered through Medicare? Like the
Mhm.
procedure is?
Unfortunately, I don't know. And that's something that I don't normally administer, so I'm not familiar with the cost. Gastros. I would ask the gastroenterologist. The primary care proctors probably don't deal with that because they're not the gastro doctors. Not all of them. I believe they have to be trained and have the equipment. They have to have the receiver to receive the radio pictures from the pill because it's transmitting a little radio signal. I don't know yet, no. Sorry. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. A camera or? Mm-hmm. I don't know how it would check out the whole body. If you swallow it, I would imagine that a pill would be your GI tract. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the Beers criteria.
Beers criteria. Okay. Those are the medicines that are considered to be used with more caution for elders because they have a higher potential for side effects such as dizziness or confusion or dehydration, can mimic dementia. Sometimes people, some medicines can make them feel dizzy and they are more likely to have falls. Amitriptyline is an example of that. We use that for people for sleep induction and at low doses for restless leg, but it can also have the side effect of grogginess and making people feel very confused, and it can mimic the onset of dementia. I think there's 26 medicines on the list right now, and off the top of my head, I couldn't name them all, but I can tell you that they're all older medicines, and most of them have drowsiness as a common side effect for them. I know that's not the complete answer. Yes? Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything else we can do for restless leg syndrome? It's often due to irritated nerves, overactive nerves sending the impulse to the leg muscles. Calcium, magnesium, vitamin B12 are supplements that are often recommended. Requip and amitriptyline and, what's the other one? I can't think of it. There are a few prescription medicine that help. What they do is they slow down the nerve impulses so that you can't fire and have the twitching and the irritation. Unfortunately, when you slow down those nerves, we're slowing down nerves elsewhere in the body, and grogginess and drowsiness. And sometimes supplementing calcium and magnesium can help with restless leg. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Shingles can leave you with nerve damage. It's called post-herpetic neuralgia, and we use the nerve transmission medicines to help with that, like gabapentin. What we're trying to do is the nerves that are affected send off signals constantly, like they're turned on and their fuse is blown and they just can't shut off, and it can cause debilitating pain for years later. Another good reason to get the shingle shot, unfortunately. Oh, from like Dollar Tree? The question is, what do you think of the aspirin and the vitamins and things that are available at Dollar Tree, the discount stores? That's a hard call. Because we don't know where they were stored, I would look at the expiration date and look at the packaging. Is the package itself dirty or faded? Is it close to the expiration date? Aspirin, if you open it and it's old, will give off the smell of vinegar. That's an indication that it has started to break down. So, okay, I have the lady in the pink shirt. Yes, ma'am.
When I get generic medication,
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, because I take sometimes you get it in pink.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have to tell you when they're changing companies? It was shocking the first time.
It's a nicety, just so that you're not shocked. The question is, do they have to tell you when they switch a manufacturer on your generic? Legally, no, but from a customer service standpoint, yeah, they really should. And the exception to that would be the narrow therapeutic medicines. Those I won't switch if I can absolutely help it, and I won't switch without telling them. But for the most part, because most generics are absolutely the same and have the same effect, and we don't really hear any problems with it, we try to tell people, we're sorry if you slip through the cracks to get past us. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Are there any drugs that improve the memory? Because I heard that this drug for ADH, that the college students are using that to improve concentration and memory.
Okay. Are there any drugs that improve memory? There are some memory drugs that are approved by the FDA. Namenda, which is donepezil, is one of them. Namenda, yeah. And listen, I need the drugs myself. What they do is they inhibit the breakdown of the transmitter chemical that the brain needs so that it stays there longer for the brain to use. As far as using the ADHD medicines for concentration, really all it does is keep them awake. If the student is not diagnosed with ADHD, then really all it does is act like speed and keep them awake. It doesn't really improve their concentration. Actually has been shown to decrease their memory retention capability, unfortunately. Yes, sir.
Is there any treatment for neuropathy?
There are several treatments for neuropathy. It depends on what's causing the neuropathy. Most of the time what we're trying to do is slow down the impulses of the nerves that have been affected or damaged. And because of that, it's a mixed bag treatment. Sometimes severe neuropathy can actually be treated with non-medical things like the TENS unit, which is an electrical stimulation pad, where the nerves that are affected join the spinal column. We'll put the electrical pads that send kind of a static signal, and they will cover up the nerve impulses coming from the damaged nerves and indirectly provide relief. So that is also an option. Lidocaine patches do the same thing, but through a medicinal route. Did you have another question? Oh, okay.
Which a naturopath would help do there, right?
I'm sorry, say again?
You were just talking about naturopath, neuropathy, the nerves,
Yes.
but with the stimulation, you can get that in a naturopath.
A naturopath. You're talking about a natural medicine doctor? Yeah, okay. She's saying,
Would that help with restless leg syndrome?
not directly. Okay, the question is, would the TENS unit or something that's available from a naturopath help with the restless legs or the neuropathy? And the answer is, it depends on what caused the neuropathy and where the damage is. We can try therapies like acupuncture and lidocaine, herbal patches. Certainly try them. You know, in this case, if you're doing it under the guidance of a healthcare provider, then I'm all for trying alternative therapies, because there is still a lot that we don't know, and I'm not going to poo-poo something that works for somebody. Oh yeah, osteopaths are trained as doctors. They take the same tests and they get the same curriculum, plus they get extra curriculum. So if you have the option to go to an osteopath versus a regular doctor, go to the osteopath. You know, they're gonna have access and training in more therapies like manipulation and natural therapies than most MDs get. We'd love to see MDs go that way.
They don't like to be called osteopathic physician.
Right. And they bring up the point, they don't like to be called osteopaths, they like to be called osteopathic physicians. And this is osteopath physicians. It's absolutely true. They are medical doctors as well. They receive the same training. Yes, ma'am. Are there dangers to getting too many cortisone shots? Yes, unfortunately. When given in children, it stunts growth. It can suppress the HPA axis. This is the hormonal control of our bodies. So you will start getting diseases like Cushing's syndrome, which is induced by corticosteroids. Water retention is affected, other hormonal controls. Because corticosteroid is a hormone, you can mess up the hormonal controls throughout your body by getting excessive corticosteroids. And diabetes as well. God, I didn't. One shot? The risk is very small for the long-term effects with one shot.
That does your nerves too. If you're used to going and having that done, does that stave off the problem with the nerves if you were to catch
Shingles? Not necessarily, because the damage, okay, the question was, going to a chiropractor regularly, will that stave off the neuropathy, the post-herpetic neuralgia that's associated with shingles? Unfortunately not, because the damage that is done in post-herpetic neuralgia is scar tissue related. And so manipulation and keeping the nerves unbent really is not going to affect whether or not scar tissue forms, sadly. Theoretically not. Not because what they're doing, they're adjusting the spinal column and undoing nerve damage that's right at the spinal column. The post-herpetic neuralgia often happens farther along the nerve, past where the chiropractor's working. And it's the difference between chiropractors and osteopathic physicians is that the osteopathic physicians also have the training of the doctor. Chiropractors go through manipulation and anatomy training, but they do not receive the rest of the training that goes along with being an MD. A naturopath goes through a different curriculum completely. There's some overlap, but they don't have the ability to prescribe, as far as I know. Okay. Yes, sir.
Could you tell me about a pharmacist training? How do you train?
Pharmacist training, they require now a bachelor's degree and then 4 years of pharmacy school. And so, for instance, my path, I already had a bachelor's degree, and then I applied to the pharmacy school, and once I was accepted, I had 4 years within the pharmacy school. In order to get into pharmacy school, you have to have 60 hours of the required undergraduate training, and then once you're in pharmacy school, you receive 3 years of in-depth academic training on the disease states and the medicines and their functions, and then a year of training in various practice sites. And then you can specialize further. Yes, ma'am?
With trained
Pharmacy technicians are the other people that you'll see back working in a pharmacy. They can go through a formal training before they work in the pharmacy, a pharmacy technician training program, or they can work in the pharmacy and go through the ASHP certified pharmacy technician training and the PTCB pharmacy certified training board question. So they help us and assist us in filling the prescriptions. They do not put the final check on the prescriptions. They are not allowed to take prescriptions over the phone. They are not allowed to offer the counseling. So I do many of the same things they do, and they do many of the same things that I can do, like actually filling the prescription. But I'm the only one who's allowed to look at that bottle, look at the pill, look at the prescription, and say, yes, it's ready to go. They can hand it to me after they put it in the bottle, but it doesn't go into your hands until it goes through my hands. The previous question, the training that the technicians, all the people that work in the pharmacy. The question was, I go to Walgreens and there are a lot of people behind the counter. Who are the other people besides the pharmacists? And what is their training like? Okay. Oh, thank you. I'm certainly available for more questions if I haven't answered something, or if there's something that you want to ask me in private. I'm going to stick around for a minute.